We're live. Yes, we are, but we shall let it breathe just for a moment. And we're good. So, welcome in, everybody. It is the Mile High Huddle podcast here on a Denver Broncos bye, week 9. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him, Zack Kelberman. Zack, I missed most of all the fun stuff last week because I got laid low by a little bit of a virus. I don't know if it was the flu or just a gnarly cold or anything, but there's not really any happening news. But since I wasn't there with you on Thursday night, how are you feeling now, having had several days to sleep on the Bradley Chubb trade?
Feel great about it. I really do. To maximize the investment they could get back on a former first round pick. I compared it with Scott to like a car. When you buy one, it depreciates as soon as you drive it off the lot. And now 5 years later, the Broncos getting a first round back for a first rounder, getting a running back, getting a fourth in there as well. You had to do it. You weren't going to pay Bradley Chubb that money. I don't personally think Bradley Chubb deserves elite edge rusher money because he's not an elite edge rusher to me. He's very, very good. So all things considered, a good deal for both sides. A good landing spot for Bradley Chubb. I was watching the Dolphins game earlier. He had some plays he was involved in, but to get back that first and offset the Russell Wilson trade a little bit for George Paton, a big W.
I feel very good about it. I honestly, Zach, when we were talking about it Monday night, I really didn't think a first rounder would be on the table for Chubb. Honestly, I get it, fifth year, relatively young, but he's not that young. If you look at Bradley Chubb, from an age perspective, okay, he's 26. So NFL team looks at that and goes, all right, we've got 3 or 4 more like good years left that we can probably bank on. But 26, I figured a second round pick, maybe a mid round pick, second round pick at best. For the Broncos to get a first round pick for Bradley Chubb, a guy who, listen, they just paid Randy Gregory 5 years, $70 million. You got Baron Browning emerging. You just invested a high round pick in Nick Bonito. You're probably not going to pay Bradley Chubb anyway. So get while the getting is good. I don't understand. I haven't seen too many people pushing back on it other than Zach, kind of the implicit message that it sends, which is, because if you were all in, a team like the Dolphins, they're all in,
Exactly.
right? So they're buyers, they're stockpiling, they're trying to get as many assets for now to capitalize as they can. So it's that implicit message that it sends, I think, more than anything, Zach, that has bummed fans out. Otherwise, the value of the trade was actually well in Denver's favor, I think.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I was going to say. All it takes is one, a trade partner. And George Paton said he wasn't going to trade Bradley Chubb unless it was a first round pick on the table. So he got what he wanted, and he found a team in the Dolphins that's aggressive. They're the Rams this year with the F them picks mindset with Chris Greer over in Miami, the general manager. And they found a team that's in win now mode. They felt they were one edge rusher away from really competing. And the Broncos took advantage of that. To get back a running back as well who can contribute in the passing game and a mid round pick too. I mean, it's just the cherry on top of a very, very good trade for George Paton.
We have a ton of topics to get to. We see some comments, some super chats stacking up. We're going to get to you next. First, though, we just got to say thank you. What's up to the presenting sponsor of tonight's live stream podcast, and that is, of course, NordVPN, who, if you're like us, you're becoming increasingly paranoid, worried about cybercrime, people stealing your private data. But that's why you got to use NordVPN. You can use it across all your different devices. And VPN, that stands for Virtual Private Network. And what NordVPN does is it's a one-stop shop to protect you, all things cybersecurity. And you do not need that degree from MIT to figure it out. It's very easy, just one click, protected. All right, very intuitive. Also, you can change your geolocation. So if you want to watch that NBA game, that NFL game, that college game, whatever that's not in your market, go ahead and alter that on your device. I'm in, New York City. Boom, you get access to those local markets on your streaming services. Awesome.
Yeah, Broncos Country, grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/MHH to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan and 4 months for free. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Again, that's nordvpn.com/MHH to get 4 months free.
Love it. Okay, let's. There's a few things I wanted to get to tonight, but let's grab Ed, who's always great. We love Edward Keating. He says, one of our Mount Rushmore Super Chat superstars throwing down saying, I believe we can turn after the bye and the Broncos will make a run. Wilson, Hackett, and the offense seem to be clicking. Can't wait until December 17th to be in Littleton, Colorado. Thanks, guys. Very cool. That'll be awesome, buddy. That's a good little segue. And thank you, Ed. We appreciate the support, big dog. You know this. That's a good segue. So, Zach, the Denver Broncos sit at 3-5. We can pull up the schedule here in just a moment, but they're on their bye. They're licking their wounds. They're doing some self scouting. Coming out, they go on the road, take on the Tennessee Titans. And if you do take a gander at the schedule from here on out, guys, it'll make your you know what pucker just a little bit. It's not going to be an easy road. So my question to you, Zach, first thing is first, what margin for error do the Denver Broncos have when we talk about how many losses can they survive and still be a viable playoff threat?
I mean, realistically, what's going to get you in the AFC? 10-7 minimum. I feel like 11-6. I can never math this new record
I know our brains are wired so much for
for
so many
16.
years.
Yeah. So I don't know. They don't have much. I mean, it's why it was so crucial for Denver to win the games in the early part of the schedule. They should have won the Jets, the Colts, for example. But it really starts on Sunday. I feel like every game going forward now is a playoff game for the Broncos if they want to keep their season alive. So it starts next Sunday against the Titans, who we're watching right now, take on the Kansas City Chiefs. So we talk about self-scouting. Broncos country should watch that game. And if they lose it, I don't know how you recover. If you win, you're still alive, but that's going to be the barometer for me, Chad. And just to push back on what Edward said a couple seconds ago, did the offense really click against Jacksonville, or did they only look good again in spurts? The second half was much better than the first half, but we have not really seen a four-quarter complete dominating effort from the Broncos offense. They come out against Tennessee, a really well-disciplined, very well-coached team, and they have a four-quarter game, I'll buy in. But for now, I'm still very skeptical.
Chris Chances throwing down a big boy super chat. Thank you very much, Chris. Means a lot to us, big dog. He says, Zach and Chad still the best in the business. Most kind, my friend. Don't forget, Scott, what will it take to win this next game? Scott goes like this. What's it going to take? Zach, I'll offer up my 2 cents on this and serve it over to you. I think that in order for the Broncos to win, we don't know who's going to be at quarterback for the Titans because, as Zach just mentioned, they're playing the Rook tonight at Arrowhead. Tannehill, we'll see how it all shakes out a week from now, but I think you got to get that run game going. If you can get that run game going, all things become possible. And, Zach, knowing that Lloyd Cushenberry is probably expected to miss this one, I'm optimistic that they can get the running game going if they try to stay committed to it. More under center stuff from Russ so that you present the plausible threat of even on a passing down or a passing play of the defense believing it might be a run. But I think it starts with gear up for the run and just hope that Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett are continuing to vibe and get on the same page here.
I agree with you. My question is, what is the Broncos backfield? I mean, if I would have told you a couple months ago, it'd be comprised of like Marlon Mack, Latavius Murray, Chase Edmonds. It's just all so far gone from the original plan with Javonte and Melvin Gordon. But you're absolutely right. You got to keep the TOP in your favor, take the pressure off Russell Wilson. But on the other side of the ball as well, I mean, put 11 guys on King Henry, hope you slow him down to make Malik Willis or Ryan Tannehill beat you. Tannehill, if he plays, would be maybe a little rusty, maybe still a little gimpy, hurt, whatever, but it all starts with Tennessee with Derrick Henry. You slow him down, you have a really good shot of winning.
Phil, thank you, buddy. It's great to see you on Facebook.
As Big Tennessee dog. Just picks off Mahomes. Sorry.
Nice. This is good. This is good news. Phil says it was a great move with Chubb. He says, I loved watching the Raiders give up a lead and lose today. Go Broncos. Hashtag MHH for life. Yeah, that's kind of been a theme for Josh McDaniels' Raiders so far in his young tenure as head coach. There is relinquishing big leads.
Isn't it great to see? I revel in a Raiders loss, and I saw they had a bad special teams play today. Gave up a big kick return. Tom McMahon special. I have zero sympathy for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Been there, done that. Luke Ellis.
Got the t-shirt.
What's up, bro? Thank you. Appreciate you. Connect with us on Twitter, by the way. He says, happy that we kept Jerry Jeudy. Still think there are big things in store for him here. Yeah, that was something that George Payton talked about Tuesday night, that the phones were ringing on the receivers. And that's what's one of the things, Zach, that has been so frustrating about this season is we going into it, we knew, hey, this is like shaping up really nicely for us, man. This could be the best wide receiver core, best supporting cast at the skill positions he's ever had. And every one of them to a man is not meeting expectations, including Cortland Sutton. You've seen some flashes from Cortland, you've seen some flashes from Jeudy, and you've seen some flashes from Hamler, but just no consistency because I think a lot of it, Zach, quarterback and the coach still trying to vibe things out. But as things keep continuing to flow, it seems like Russ is going away from Sutton as his kind of no-brainer, more towards Jeudy, because if you actually turn on the all 22 film, Zach, there was a stretch there where the Broncos, these receivers just were not getting open. But you know what? Jerry Jeudy is. Cortland Sutton's really struggling to create separation. Guess who's not? Jerry Jeudy. Guess who else isn't? KJ Hamler.
Yeah, that's very well said, very well put. It's looking like he's not just Russell Wilson's number one now, Jerry Jeudy. He's the Broncos' number one because Jeudy really showed out with Brett Rippon under center, and right now he's in some sort of zone, and it's good to see. Why the Broncos, I think, didn't move him is because for George Paton to even consider that, there had to been an offer on the table better than what Chase Claypool drew from Chicago, which was a second and a fifth or sixth or whatever. So if he didn't get that, why trade away a guy who's still ascending, still on his rookie contract, and he could be the Broncos' number one receiver for the long term if you just commit to him. He showed now, Jerry Jeudy, if you get the ball in his hands and not use him as a decoy, not use him as what he's not, a possession receiver on the outside, he's going to help you win ball games, and hopefully the Broncos commit to that going forward.
Jeremy, good to see you on Facebook, my friend. Thanks for being with us and the support. He says, "What's up, guys? I hate to say it, but the center getting hurt is going to help the Broncos."
Absolutely.
Funny you say that, Jeremy, because I wrote yesterday that the Lloyd Cushenberry injury is a blessing in disguise. You hate to see any player get injured, any Bronco go down like that. It's a bummer. But we've been saying on this podcast that it's been time. Both of us were like optimistic and supportive of Lloyd Cushenberry as being the man. And when we heard about Russell Wilson, Zach, including him on all the offseason stuff, the throwing sessions and all that, and then like really touting him during training camp and all that, it's like we saw the writing on the wall that this is the entrenched center. All right, maybe now with a like bona fide quarterback, we're going to see a different level of Lloyd Cushenberry, but it just didn't play out that way. He was week in, week out, rep in, rep out, the weak link on that offensive line, and it trickles downhill to everybody, and especially Dalton Reisner and whoever is lining up at guard, whether at the time that was Graham Glasgow or Quinn Miners. So I think this is the right trio. We'll see. Our theory is going to be put to the test next week, Zach. The right trio being Dalton Reisner at left guard, Glasgow center, Miners right guard.
And I still wouldn't cry if Netani Moody got some or some guards at left guard, some reps at left guard as well. I just want to see what he has and what he can bring to the table in the system. But for Cushenberry, if you don't have it, you don't have it. It doesn't really depend if it's power, man, zone scheme. And it looks like Cushenberry is just not strong enough at the POA to be a starting caliber center at this level. That's fine. And I hope he heals up soon. I don't want to see any player hurt, go through an injury, whatever. Personally, no problem with him. Professionally, just not good enough. No coincidence why the Broncos offense started to click in the second half with Glasgow at center.
Yes, exactly. We do not believe in coincidence. Okay. Coincidence is the exception, not the rule. We probably should have taken it as a harbinger, Zach, that he failed to launch, despite the fact that his first 2 years in the league, he was being coached by one of the most venerated O-line coaches in the game. Another head scratcher on why Nathaniel Hackett opted to go ahead and send him on down the road, Mike Munchak, for Butch Berry, who I hear things that is not that well regarded, could be not that well regarded in the hallowed halls. David Wilder, good to see you, big dog. Thank you for the support and just every night, buddy. We really love you. He says, good evening. I hope we can go on a winning streak now. Maybe we can be a surprise in the second half and be that Cinderella team that happens every season. One can dream. Maybe. Let's take a look at that. All right. I want everyone to be hopeful.
I was just pulling that up.
Okay, but don't get your hopes up. Does that sound too contradictory? Be hopeful, but don't get your hopes up. All right. Here's what awaits your Denver Broncos coming out of the bye.
Tennessee, it's week 10 already.
Yeah, dude, time flying. Tennessee, okay, and then home against the Raiders in a rematch. That's not going to be an easy game, guys. Quit. You just should never look at the Raiders anymore as just some kind of a joke gimme game because they've had Denver's number now for too long. 5 straight, I think now, Zach. All right. Carolina, that's like your one kind of maybe breather game a little bit, but still, it's the NFL any given Sunday. Then the Ravens, week 13, at the Ravens, by the way. Then you're home against the Chiefs. Then you're home against the Cardinals. Then you're on the road at a Rams squad that is listing right now. Then you're on the road at the Chiefs. Then you get the Chargers to kind of polish things off. So I think the margin for error here is over the next, what is it, 9 games? Yeah. You've got a margin of error for 2 losses. You can afford 2 losses. Outside of that, then you start losing control of your destiny. Austin says, I'm still laughing that McDaniels is the Raiders head coach. LOL. Yeah, it's because the football gods have a sense of humor. That's the truth.
There are no gimme games left for the 2022 Broncos. They've played down to levels of competition I have not seen in quite a while. So even Carolina could prove to be a challenge. But you're right. They have maybe 2 loss margin for error. I just don't see, Chad, realistically, we talk about going on a run, and it very well could happen. But even teams like Baltimore, who most consider maybe second tier, middling or whatever, that's an East Coast early game for Denver, which they historically struggle in. They had to beat teams on the early part of their portion like they should have in Indianapolis, the Jets, even the first Raiders game. All their games were winnable, but you have to stack the wins when you can. I just personally, it's hard to see 3 or 4 more victories left on that based on what we've seen from Denver so far this year.
And that's the thing that should, in some way, perhaps encourage fans is that, as you just mentioned, Zach, as ugly as it's been at times, the Broncos have been in every single game. They're not getting trucked out of their cleats. You know, they're a viable competitive product. It's just with 3 exceptions, they always find ways at the end. It's the other team that makes the clutch plays that are needed to win. Michaela Israel throwing down a super chat. Thank you, my friend. She says, I feel less sad that we lost to the Jets now that the Bills lost to them too. Yeah, that was a surprise. I got to be honest with you. I did not see the Jets beating the Bills.
Jets defense is for real. I give Robert Saleh a lot of credit, but that offense with Zach Wilson is still so erratic, man. And after losing Breece Hall, I commend them for putting up any points. But to me, not to take anything away from Gang Green, that was more of a letdown game for Buffalo. Every team has them. It happens almost every week by someone. I think that was Buffalo's. Whoever they play next week, I feel bad for. Put it that way.
Wero, hey, dude, by the way, your mug is going out tomorrow. I ended up waiting because I had a couple other little pieces of merch that I wanted to send with the mug, and they arrived late this past week. So it's going out, actually arrived Friday. So it's going out tomorrow. You should be seeing that probably by end of the week, I would guess. But thank you for the super chat, bro. He says the Raiders fans are already calling for Tom McMahon to be fired. Yeah, I mean, it was kind of bizarre that after how bad Denver special teams were under his watch, that he just immediately walked right back into a coordinator job. But I guess maybe that has a little something to do, Zach, with, they don't grow on trees, I guess. I don't know. I'm trying to understand it myself.
Yeah, I don't think Josh McDaniels is long for Vegas, and all of Broncos country could have saw that coming. The problem, based on what I saw, I know they got blanked by the Saints last week. It's not the offense. Didn't Devontae have 3 touchdowns today or something like that, 148 yards? It's the defense. And I actually commended McDaniels for hiring Patrick Graham as his DC coming over from New York. He was a very well-respected guy. I thought he whipped that defense into shape. They just don't have the talent on that side of the ball. But hiring McMahon and even investing your franchise in McDaniels, giving him the keys, even to run the offense, very short-sighted. But we all laugh at their misery.
Savage Boy Kev on Twitch. What's up, buddy? Good to see you. He says, doesn't it feel good to have a week of stress-free of Broncos football? On one hand, yeah, I think for those of us long-suffering fans and people in the media too, it's like it's nice when things have been not going so well to kind of get your own little breather. But speaking of that, Zach, I mean, people still up in arms. Like Russell Wilson has reached a whole new level of scrutiny. I'm starting to understand a little bit now. I viewed it more as kind of an excuse in GM speak, but when George Payton was talking about the unprecedented level of scrutiny that Nathaniel Hackett was facing as a head coach and Russ and all this, I was kind of like, kind of dismiss it. But dude, to see people tripping out over what he tweeted, so innocuous from his vacation. Where is he? Somewhere in
Cabo.
Cabo. Yeah, in Cabo. It's like, dude, are you serious? You're going to continue finding ways to crucify this dude. This is just who he is. He's just kind of a cornball. Like, it is what it is.
Yeah, when I was covering the Cowboys on a past life, Ezekiel Elliott famously went to Cabo amid his contract holdout, and he got killed for that until the Cowboys started winning, and it wasn't a story anymore. So that's the thing now. The Broncos come out and beat Tennessee on Sunday. No one's going to mention the Cabo thing. If they lose, that'll be the first thing they throw back in Russell Wilson's face, along with the danger witch and every other cringy thing he's put on social media. But his detractors are always looking for ammunition, and what Russ doesn't understand, Chad, he keeps giving it to him over and over and over every week. Ads are one thing, commercials are pre-planned, but when you're tweeting work hard or stay at work, whatever he did, and then while he's poolside at Cabo,
right,
that's easy bait for his detractors.
He's surprisingly tone deaf. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
I'm not saying that those things aren't true, but to me, the worthiness of them, the relevance of them being newsworthy and meme worthy and worthy of even being in this conversation, it's like, maybe if we didn't know that about Russ, that he's kind of about, he's a guy that puts in the work. Don't get me wrong, but he's also kind of a guy that wants to be known as the guy that puts in the work.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Peyton Manning, he just put in the work. He just did the job, and it came out in the wash on game day. With Russ, he puts in the work, and by and large, with the exception of this weird season, it comes out in the wash. But he also wants to make sure all the sources know how hard he's a working.
The hardest worker in the room is not the guy saying I'm the hardest worker in the room. And you're 100% correct. He wants that tag and he wants that attribution to his name, but you don't do it that way. You do it by working hard in silence, and that'll catch on. That'll become known. You don't have to say it and publicize it. So on one hand, I kind of see where his haters come from, but it's way over the top. It's ridiculous.
That's all I'm getting at, is it's like the blowback at this point is also in its own way kind of tone deaf. It's like, why are you freaking out about a quarterback who's bottom 5 right now, tweeting things from the hot tub in Cabo? Like, don't you have bigger fish to fry? David, what's going on, big dog? Appreciate the super chat, David. He says, good evening. And right back at you, dude. Broncos for life. Yeah, we love it. It's great to see you. We appreciate each and every one of you who join us on these live streams, and those of you that find it in the kindness of your heart to support what we do here by throwing down super chats like that, David, and like Wero here. Like Edward, like Chris, everybody, it just means the world to us. Wero says, even if we get mathematically eliminated, wins still serve a purpose in lowering the value of the Seahawks first round pick. I hope they draft a bust. Yeah, that's kind of been the final dagger here amidst Denver's early season depredation, Zach, is seeing the Seahawks. What are they now, 7-3 or 6-3? But either way, like, they're a force to be reckoned with. It's not a flash in the pan. Like, they are a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, I don't have to be reminded of it. Seahawks trolls still do that on Twitter. And you know what? They can talk. Right now, Geno Smith's playing good football. They beat the Broncos. Russell Wilson's looking like he took a step back in Denver. So, yeah, I do hope if that's what it comes to, we have to be that petty. I can be that petty. And also, we have to hope that San Fran loses as many games as possible to maximize the Broncos' first-round pick.
I was trying to read what that says in your profile pic there, Wero, but it looked like a weird amalgamation of Derek Carr's face, and I was trying to read the text therein.
Was it an eyeliner?
Yes.
Okay. Derek Carr, confirmed.
Free Indeed says Wilson needs to finish strong or be benched next year. That's not going to happen. Denver would be better off with a rookie than to relive 2022. 2022 has been bad, and here's where it could get worse, though. Free Indeed. At the end of this season, if it kind of continues at the course that it has, they lose a few more than they win, and they ends up being another lost season. If you're George Payton, is it just automatica? Okay, we got to find the right coach for Russ, and you fire Nathaniel Hackett? Because if you do that, then you risk going through a whole other season of a coach and a player getting to know each other again, and all that whole gumbo of ingredients and factors and whatnot. Whereas if you let Nathaniel Hackett weather the storm, you let him go through his growing pains alongside Russell Wilson, who's going through his own growing pains and trial and error learning curve, and then you bank on that somehow, Zach, informing how the 2023 season is going to go. I don't know. I don't think it's as no-brainer a decision, assuming the season kind of ends on the same footing that we're on right now. It's not quite as no-brainer as it might seem, I think, at first glance.
I mean, I personally think it could be taken off the table, that option of benching Russell Wilson, except for injury. He'll be your starting quarterback
Yeah,
next season.
no doubt.
I still think, and I thought the Broncos back in April, after they acquired Russ, they should have drafted a young developmental quarterback. You have to upgrade on Josh Johnson and Brett Rippon just in case. It'd be nice to have a young quarterback in the system, but then you have to ask yourself, is Nathaniel Hackett the one to develop that quarterback? Same question we were asking under Vic and VJ. But there's so many circumstances here. If they fire Hackett and hire Sean Payton, perhaps, let's say, if they have a quarterback guru, a legitimate one in the building, then yeah, I want as many good quarterbacks in that stable as possible. It's a multi-layered question.
Diamond Rattlers just hoping that we can get a game over 500. Going to be tough. Hopefully the offense starts clicking, he says. Yeah, and you know what? That's the key to this whole thing. The Broncos defense, Zach, they're going to keep showing up and chopping wood. They're going to do their thing. Really, the destiny of this season, it always was going to be about Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett, and it still is that. What form is this relationship going to take? The steps that it seemed like the Broncos took forward in London against the Jacksonville Jaguars, were those a flash in the pan? Was it fool's gold? Was it here to stay? I would have liked, if I was in a perfect world, Zach, when Nathaniel Hackett met with the media Tuesday after the London game, and this preceded the Bradley Chubb trade. Scott, what was it you said on that email? Like all these comments are going to be like useless in an hour's time after the deadline passed, and you were right. But anyway, when he was asked about what are you going to do, Zach, how are you going to utilize this bye to improve the team? Let's get to some self-scouting. What are some of the issues? I would have liked to have seen a more introspective answer that had a little bit more meat on its bones. But I guess he did talk about figuring out red zone, figuring out third down. If you figure out third down and red zone, now this is an offense that actually is a force to be reckoned with, because they've been able to move the ball here and there in chunk plays, okay? Where they continue to step on their own you-know-whats is they can't stay on the field. Third down, incomplete. Third down, incomplete. And a lot of times it's just dumb play calls. A lot of times it's bad execution. It's a combination of these things. But, Zach, it sounds maybe too simplistic, but if this Broncos offense is able to utilize the bye as a means to figure out what they're doing wrong on third down and do it better and convert better in the red zone, this suddenly could become a juggernaut, believe it or not.
Yeah, it really boils down to, for me, if they can play like the second half of the Jaguars, if we see that offense, they can win some ball games this season. If they play like the first half, which is pretty much the norm this season, then they're not going to win many more ball games. It's more, I have less faith in Hackett being the one to turn the ship around than I do Russ. I think there is still gas left in Russ's tank. I'm just not sure that Hackett can be the one that can siphon it to the Broncos' advantage, but we'll see what they've learned. It's going to be a hard test, though, coming out against the Tennessee Titans defense. Very, very, again, well-disciplined, a very, very well-coached team, and they don't give up many big plays. Did the Broncos learn anything, Chad, from that London game, utilizing their playmakers in Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler? I want to see more Greg Dulcich. Didn't think I'd be saying that this season, but you got to get the ball in the hands of the guys that are making plays, and those are three of them. If they can do that consistently, they'll have a good chance.
Shout out right back at you, Michael Ronquillo. Great to see you, big dog. Yes, but it really does boil down to, hey, does the offense figure it out? If Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett figure things out, iron out the kinks on, another part of this too, Zach, is this identity crisis of Russell Wilson, the pull, the struggle of, hey, I want to be known as the, quintessential pocket passing titan of a quarterback, like the Tom Brady's and the Peyton Mannings and the Drew Breeses of the NFL annals. But push came to shove, dude. You couldn't. That's just not your game. Your game is when you see the Broncos score touchdowns in this season with Russell Wilson, Zach, it's always sparked somehow, some way by him improvising with his legs one way or another. And you know what? You're still going to have to, at times, be able to win from the pocket. And when it's at times on an as-needed basis, as the game flow dictates, organically, naturally. I believe that Russ can do that. But when you try to force feed situations where Zach, like in this particular look, in this down, in this distance, if you did a little play pass, naked boot, or you got a moving pocket, or something where Russ is able to utilize his athleticism, you probably convert. Instead, you're calling a 13 personnel, receivers just run your routes, shotgun, Russ drops back, shocker, he gets sacked, or shocker, it's incomplete, or whatever. Russ is a big part of that, having to come to his own conclusion of saying, hey, coach, you're right. Let's just get back to doing what we both know suits me best.
Yeah, that's perfectly said, and a lot of it does fall on Rust. He's the one out there on the field making the passes, making the plays, but it's get on Hackett as well. If it's 3rd and 1 and you're in the red zone, you don't have to have a shotgun formation. I mean, go under center, mix it up a little bit, learn from your mistakes. And the Broncos have now had a week off to learn from that. The question is that we'll find out in a week's time is, did they? We'll see.
Exactly. And the NFL is such a hustle bustle. Like, it's easy for us as armchair analysts after the fact to go, oh, look here, they should fix this. They fixed that. We're seeing this. We're seeing that. Well, in the NFL meat grinder, you go from Sunday to suddenly you get like a day to kind of review what you did right, what you did wrong in that next game. And then it's time to start looking at the next opponent because it's just like this, man. And the good teams do figure out ways to maximize the bye, and we'll see if this ends up being a good team. Phil, appreciate you, buddy. He says, I'm hoping that Russ will keep hitting Jerry Jeudy and Greg Dulcich. That may open Cortland Sutton a little. I am sold on the quick hits and using the backs. Yes, you got to start using another thing too, Zach, on this front. I want to talk about what he said on Sutton, but another aspect to this offense kind of finding its rhythm is it's like fans that can remember the juggernaut that were the Carolina Panthers of 2015, how they just wrecked through the NFC playoffs. And then they got to the Super Bowl and the Broncos pass rush. They figured out right away in the film study of the Panthers that these 7-step dropbacks and these longer developing pass plays, baby, it just played right into our hands of what we do as a pass rushing front seven. And the Broncos, I'm seeing way too much of that, Zach, where it's these long dropbacks, and even if it's a shorter dropback, these longer developing passing patterns where they're just being a little too greedy. It's like Peyton Manning always talked about, you can't go broke taking a profit. When, as Phil writes here, you see these quick hits and utilizing the backside of the backfield, just get the ball out of his hands quick, pick up those positive yards and live to fight another down. It doesn't need to be looking for that big play all the time. And even Nathaniel Hackett talked about when he was asked Tuesday, hey, is Russell Wilson pressing? What say you, coach? He said, I don't think it's pressing. I think he's just trying to look for the big play, and that's the mark of a great quarterback. And then he went into, of course, kissing the ring, so to speak. But that's the definition of pressing. When you're playing outside yourself, you're not playing with presence of mind, and you're desperate to make that big play, everything goes out of whack, dude. You just got to take what's there. And if we could see more of that presence of mind, more of that kind of focus from Russell Wilson, dude, it's back to normalcy as far as what you come to expect from a Russell Wilson offense.
Yeah, I talked about it a few weeks ago. It seemed like Hackett is trying to copy and paste the Green Bay offense in Denver and make Russell Wilson into Aaron Rodgers. Well, like you mentioned, Chad, long developing plays based on timing and perfect precision. That's the Packers offense. You put on a Green Bay game, that's what they do. And that's not what Denver is built to do with Russell Wilson. So hopefully he learned from that. About Cortland Sutton, though, I'm as big of a Cortland Sutton fan as you're going to find. I still think he's a tremendous receiver, but I think this season, based on what I've seen, he's a little, what's the word, disinterested on most routes. He's not fighting for the ball as much, and he's not getting open. The one strong suit about Hackett is he seems to scheme his receivers open. He's done it for every receiver, but Cortland Sutton is finding a hard time to get away from man press coverage, even zone coverage in certain situations. That's on Cortland Sutton to be better, and that's why Jerry Jeudy is slowly but surely overtaking him as WR1.
It has been maddening watching Cortland Sutton this season. Like, he is just it seems at times disinterested. Who was it? I think I'll give us a shout out to 78 Leadhead. I want to say in the YouTube comments made mention of the latest Kurt Warner study ball breakdown of the Broncos offense, and it was on that Jags game. And one of the plays he spent a lot of time on, Zach, was that first slant that Sutton ran against the Jags, where it was almost picked off, where the corner had the inside leverage, and he barely avoided that being an interception. But people go, "Oh, Russ, why are you throwing that?" No. That wasn't Russ. That was Cortland Sutton doing multiple things wrong on a route that allowed the corner to get that inside leverage and not only break up the pass, but come dang close to picking it off. And it's things that Cortland Sutton, this deep into his career, Zach, and knowing you're playing with a guy, quarterback, who's been to 9 Pro Bowls, like, you should be seeing a much more aware, a much more hungry Cortland Sutton, especially after they paid him last year. Like, Cortland Sutton, to me, has been one of the biggest disappointments of this season. He is not winning his matchups.
That could be why he's not hungry anymore. Just speculating, but
No kidding, huh?
gets a big contract and decides to kind of pull back the reins a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's not fighting for it, and it seemed like he had a really hot start to the year. He did, in fact, but maybe defenses started adjusting to what they saw on tape, rolling more coverage over Cortland Sutton's way, and he hasn't broken out from it. So it's on him as much as Russell Wilson or Nathaniel Hackett to get 14 the ball.
I saw a funny meme today on the Aaron Rodgers Green Bay Packers struggles, and it listed all the crappy teams that the Packers have lost to, and one or two other noteworthy things on the recent Rodgers resume, and then it said all these things happened after Aaron Rodgers took ayahuasca. Talking about the psychotropic thing that he apparently did. He told, I think, Joe Rogan that he did or something. And yeah, it's hard to. Or here's another explanation for Aaron Rodgers' struggles. He lost Nathaniel Hackett.
Yeah, the ayahuasca, whatever, I think is the more probable
Mm-hmm.
outcome. But I wonder, watching him today, Chad, he threw 3 bad picks, 2 of which came in the red zone. Was he trying to be Russell Wilson and the Broncos offense? My first thought was, you know what, Aaron, it happens to everyone, but maybe you're cooked. Maybe Father Time is calling down, catching up to you. You just don't make the throws anymore like you used to make. Not getting much help, though. If I was him, and I see why now, Chad, because we covered the A-Rod saga so extensively over the course of the offseason, why he hates Brian Gutekunst. The guy has done literally nothing to surround him with talent. When he's throwing a Sammy Watkins out there and Christian Watson and Romeo Dobbs, that's not what a Hall of Famer should be experiencing at his disposal.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I'll be honest though. I mean, I didn't expect to see this level, this magnitude of struggles from Aaron Rodgers. I didn't think losing Nathaniel Hackett would have that big of an impact. So it's either Hackett or the ayahuasca. Which one is it? I mean, I don't know. There's,
you know what?
If you don't believe in coincidence, all right, as I do not, maybe there's a little something more to this Hackett thing than meets the eye. Maybe the struggles we've seen in Denver here, because George Payton's a pretty smart guy, right? George Payton's not a sucker. Maybe there's a lot more to the, as far as complicity and culpability and what's happened this year to kind of the Russell Wilson ego more than anything.
Let me give you, and burst your bubble a little bit, give you the more realistic outcome here. Losing Luke Getsy on that Packers staff. Went to Chicago, and you know what? I've been a big Justin Fields hater, but lately Justin Fields is looking like a first-round quarterback making plays. That Chicago offense is coming to life, so maybe Luke Getsy was the secret of that Packers coaching staff. But I'm glad, looking back on it in hindsight, the Broncos didn't give up, 3 first-round picks to pay Aaron Rodgers $55 million a year. It seems like his prime is closing fast.
All right. We're at about 38 minutes, guys, sitting here on the bye. If you have any burning topics that you want us to, get it in the chat. Zach, what were your thoughts here on the NFL levying a $10,000 fine on Justin Simmons for his naughty taunting across the pond?
This is how I know we haven't had a game in a week now. It is what it is. The NFL is cracking down on taunting this year, even though they've relaxed for a couple years now, celebrations and things like that, and interceptions and touchdowns. It is what it is, man. The Broncos still got the win. Simmons still had the defensive play of the game, you could say. So, whatever.
I think this is worth addressing really quick. All right, what the actual I paraphrased it earlier. But what Nathaniel Hackett had to say about Russell Wilson pressing, let me find the quote here. Quote, I agree to a certain extent with Russell Wilson. Pardon, let me close this. I agree to a certain extent with Russell that he's not necessarily pressing, but he's always trying to make a play. That's his mentality. That's the great ones mentality, the guys that have played a long time in this league that have thrown for a lot of yards, they're always looking for those big plays. As we work together, I get to learn more when he's trying to find those, what he can do to get those, and I'm trying to create those for him. Of course, we learn about each other after every single game, close quote. So, Zach, do you think Russell Wilson has been pressing, or do you think it's something else? And I guess, first off, how do you define pressing?
I just think overcompensate. A lot of this, Chad, it goes back to what we both think that Russell Wilson's been in, and that's a mental slump for one reason or the other. And when you're pressing mentally, you start pressing physically, and it changes everything that you do on the field, off the field. So yeah, I think he's trying to make the big play and show Seattle specifically that, hey, I'm still Russell Wilson. I'm still a 9-time Pro Bowler. You made the wrong move trading me away. I'm going to light the league on fire. Also, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes at Dove Valley. Did Hackett say to Russ, listen, do what you want out there. This is your team. Go make a play for us. The pressure the Broncos put on him. And also Russell Wilson, the pressure he's putting on himself. You mentioned the competitor that he is. He loves football, despite how corny he can be. And he's always working to get better and stay at his craft. So, yeah, I think he was overcompensating, but that comes with the territory when a team gives up all the draft picks and the players and pays you $250 million. And he hasn't lived up to that, and everyone knows it.
Andrew, good to see you, brother. He says, having problems with stars, but man, it's the law of what can go wrong. Don't even worry about it, dude. It's great to see you, big dog. MHH for life. We do appreciate that. Diamond Rattler wants to know here, Zach, where are you guys on your Sopranos? Are you actually rewatching Sopranos too? Did you join me in this?
I mean, I've done it for a couple years now. I mean, I watched it as a kid when it was first on, but I wasn't really old enough to understand the humor. The show is so freaking hilariously funny. And also the nuance, the writing is just so spectacular. It's like on a different level of any other show out there. But I've been just, once I hit the finale, I see the onion rings, chat, I start rewatching it all over again. It's almost therapeutic for me. That's how good the show is. But I would say 10 rewatches, 11 rewatches, it's the GOAT.
I'm on episode 3, season 4 right now. My momentum slightly kind of took a little bit of a nosedive just because some other things crossed my path, but I'm still watching it. And nothing to me, though, Zach, nothing beats those first 2 seasons. Something about the dynamic of, I mean, first of all, you get the April, antagonism from whether it's Richie or I guess season 3 is when you get Jackie Jr., all that stuff. But so I'll say the first 3 seasons to me are the best. But really, also the mother. I know this is not a Sopranos podcast, but when the actress that played Tony's mother, passed away in real life, so they had to write her out of the show, and then it just kind of took on a different thing. But that's where I'm at on it.
I think season 3 is the best. The show gets better as it goes on. Season 1, when you look back, Chad, it's a little comical. They had to really find itself. Season 2, it started taking off, but season 3, you get so much. Anyone who hasn't seen the show, I promise you, give it a watch. You will love it.
Even if you're not a huge fan of like gangster films, Godfather, Goodfellas, Casino, etc. This is a animal unto itself. It's its own kind of thing. And yeah, I agree on that 100%. Okay. Josh wants to know here, how do you fix our penalties? That's a tough question, dude. It's to me, that's always been more about the soul of a team than anything, and it points a lot to coaching. Any lapse in discipline comes down to coaching. What's that phrase? I'm sick, so my Rolodex is a little bit. You're either coaching it or you're condoning it or whatever. All right. So if you're seeing lapses of discipline through penalties or whatever, it's either because that's what they're being coached to do, which obviously no one's being coached to jump off sides, no one's being coached to hold or whatever, or they're condoning it by not emphasizing or teaching how to avoid it, etc. Whether it's in the classroom, in the film room, and team, etc. So I think it really still points to coaching. I don't expect it to go away, to be honest with you, Zach, because this is still such a young staff. Remember, not only Nathaniel Hackett year 1 as a head coach, all his coordinators are in their positions for the first time ever. It's going to take time. We thought it would be microwaved by the virtue of the presence of Russell Wilson, that their learning curves would kind of be a little bit more streamlined, but that's not the case.
What also is contributing, I mean, the head coach, you're right, is the obvious factor. To me, it boils down to coaching. But when you have so many different players coming into the lineup because of injuries, it really ruins cohesion, chemistry, communication. That contributes to it. But it comes down to the head coach and not having his team ready or disciplined and on top of their game from the opening whistle. Maybe they can hire someone for that. Oh, wait, they have Jerry Rosberg for that. And he hasn't done much in 5 weeks or whatever. So as long as Hackett is here, I feel like it could be a Achilles heel for Denver.
Michaela Israel with a second super chat. Thank you, my friend. She says The Sopranos will never be topped. Yeah, I agree. It's personally my favorite TV show of all time. I'd throw out there as contenders, but still not on the level. Breaking Bad, really really good. People tell me you got to watch Better Call Saul. I tried the first season and it bored me to tears. That was so boring. They're like, no, you just got to get past first season and then Better Call Saul. I'm like, well, I got a life to lead and I got things going on. I'm going to go ahead and pass on that. The Wire is really good. I was
Yeah.
watching The Wire a little bit today, actually. Some Jimmy McNulty, dude. So those are probably my three, and they're all old. They're shows that are out of circulation now.
Yeah, I like shows with really good writing, and that's what makes Sopranos the best show because the writing is so hilarious and it's so real too. It's real life stuff, real life arguments, real life relationships, real life issues, despite the show being about a mobster. Mad Men is another one that's a really well written show, very well acted. I enjoy a lot, but to me, it's Sopranos and then literally everything else.
Dude, I was watching Football Night in America before we went live here, and they had this big, this whole segment geared around a sponsor, a betting sponsor. I'm not going to name drop it, but I'm thinking to myself, man, different time, different place, because Tony Soprano and those boys, they'd be freaking fighting up a storm to not allow gambling to become legalized because that would take all the power away from the gangsters and from the loan sharks and all the bookies and whatnot. In the old days, that was all underground stuff. That was all illicit. Now it's all legal and above board. You can go down to the local wherever. If it's legal in your state, you can just go place your bet. No one's going to come break your knee. I mean, you do have to have the money up front. That's the big difference, I guess. So that probably still exists, Zach. There's probably still guys out there that are sick, degenerate gamblers, to quote Tony Soprano, who they don't have the upfront money, so they want to borrow money from a guy, Hesh, right, and then go gamble with Tony Soprano.
Yeah, there's still some Davey Scatinos out there that just can't
That's
help
right.
themselves. But I think the Mafia presence, though, has really shrunk in the last 30 or 40 years. I think the Sopranos era, it was filmed in the late 90s through the mid 2000s. That was the last waning, prime of the Mafia. And especially now with social media chat and everything else, it must be impossible to commit such offenses of which I have no knowledge firsthand.
Well, guys, yes, indeed, Diamond Rattler, Omar coming, such a great character. Last super chat, guys. Unless you got anything else, he's saying. Austin says, Game of Thrones and HOD House of Dragons. Okay, hello, are good, and OFC, the Lord of the Rings for movies.
Of
I'm a
course.
huge Lord of the Rings guy, so I feel you on that. The new one that just came out on Amazon was horse crap, by the way. I couldn't even watch that. But Game of Thrones was good. They screwed up the ending, and unfortunately, as someone who's been reading the books and waiting for the series in its literary form to be completed for 20 plus years, I started reading those books when I was a teenager in the 90s, and he still hasn't finished it because it would be finished, but the author, George R. R. Martin, focused all this time now on HBO and into adaptation into film, TV and whatnot. So the story ended up fluttering off into the wind. The way Game of Thrones ended completely crushed it and ruined it for me. It was the stupidest ending ever.
Yeah, Boardwalk Empire is another show. That was an
Yes, yes,
HBO
yes.
spawn that was really good. It was written by Terrence Winter, who was the one of the chief writers of The Sopranos. Terrific writer who also wrote The Wolf of Wall Street, by the way. So anyone who liked The Sopranos likes that mafia kind of genre. Check out Boardwalk Empire.
Uh, Nucky Thompson, baby. I love that too. I was a big fan. I was a big fan. This isn't exactly fair. Better Call Saul. I hear that a lot. That no, you just got to hang on and get through it. That first season was so boring, dude. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. Nothing. So I'm like, look, I got a life to lead. I got things to do. I've never even seen a Fast and Furious movie for what it's worth. Believe it or not, I've never watched those movies. I'm not big into pulp action, gratuitous action uh, on that front, for what it's worth. But all right, one last gander here in the chat. Let me make sure we're not leaving anybody out to dry. I think we're good, Zach. If we do our shout outs and then say goodnight.
Yeah, we can do it. I tried, Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad. I wanted to like it. It just was a little over the top for me. I like realism. That's why shows like The Wire, Sopranos were so good. I tried what's the one with Jason Bateman?
Ozark.
Ozark. Yeah, I tried that. The first episode was good, but it lost me after that. So that's why Sopranos was such a high standard, high bar to clear. Not a lot of shows have come close. But that was this was a Broncos podcast tonight, not a TV podcast, but that was the MHH pod. Follow us on Twitter at the MHH pod. Follow the main account on Twitter at Mile High Huddle. Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch, you know what it is, where it is, huddleuppod.com, and get your merch on. Also, facebook.com/milehighhuddlepod. Be sure you're liking that page, following that page, and if you haven't, go to Apple Podcasts, leave your football pre-save 5-star review for a chance to win some of that merch each and every month. But if anything, please, as you see ticking below you now, subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
Amen. Shout out to these great Super Chat superstars on YouTube tonight. Ed, Chris, Luke, Austin, Michaela, Wero, David. Much love and respect. And then on Facebook, Phil, David Wilder, and Jeremy throwing down. We love you. We appreciate you. Have a good rest of your weekend, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Take care, and as always, guys, go Broncos.